Hello and welcome to the Empowered Expat Wife podcast. If you moved abroad following your significant other and are looking to create a fulfilled life on your terms there, this is the place to be. I'm your host Camila Quintana, and I'm so excited to be on this journey with you and to inspire you to create the kind of life abroad you truly deserve.
Hi, everyone. This is episode 19 of the Empowered Expat Wife podcast. And today I'm so happy to have my dear friend and colleague, Flor García, with us. Hello, Flor.
Hi, Camila. Oh, so glad to be here. My pleasure.
Too.
Yeah.
Me too. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Flor in case you don't know her yet. She's originally from Venezuela, married to a Venezuelan American, and the mother of 3 little nomads. That actually inspired the name of her popular blog and business, Little Nómadas. She's a former attorney and now works as a language consultant with a special focus on multicultural families whom she consults in their many questions that come up when you lead this multicultural and multilingual lifestyle. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, about raising bilingual little nomads.
Yeah, Camila, this is such a beautiful topic, and a topic that has many sides and many faces. I think it is amazing that you are addressing this now on your podcast, and that many other women can and families can just listen to and find stories that they can relate to.
Yeah, well, and I think that's so important. And sometimes we're just missing people who are going through the same thing that can understand what we're going through.
Yeah.
And, this interview could actually be any random conversation that I've already had with Flor. We get together, talk about questions that come up when we raise our children with more than one language, and we move with them. We're also the co-founders and co-moderators of the Expat. What was it called?
The Expat Moms Club. You don't remember the name of our baby.
The Expat Mom Support Club. See, oh my God.
This is a Facebook group where you can, you can have a safe place to share your story. I think that's what Camila and I have always wanted to do, because when we met, we connected immediately, but it was because of our story. Camila told me her story, I told her mine. And even though each story is so unique, I believe that the stories help us build those bridges that connect us. And that's what our Facebook group is about. When we created, we envisioned, and we still do, this community of people sharing, expat moms sharing their stories, so they can build bridges and not feel so alone along the way, because sometimes it's lonely.
It is. Yes, it is sometimes. And just as a little disclaimer, as you might be able to hear in my voice, like I can hear it so strongly, that's why I have to mention it, but I have a really bad cold. So I already apologize if I sneeze or something. I'm going to try edit that out, but just in case, that's what's going on. But anyway, I'm still really psyched and energized about this special conversation. So let's get started. Let's dive in.
Absolutely.
Do you maybe want to start off by telling us a little bit about you and about your journey?
Yes, absolutely, Camila. My journey as an expat began in 2002. So that is almost, 20 years ago, almost. And I moved to the United States. I got married. My husband, his parents are Venezuelan, but he was born in the United States, and he was living in the United States at the time I met him. So I moved there for love. This is the love expat story. And then right away we began our family. My kids were born in Texas, and always at home I have procured to speak Spanish to them. So that was something that began even though they were little. I knew that they needed to have that exposure to the Spanish language. And at first I thought that, okay, just by speaking, it's going to be fine. Then we lived in Texas for 12 years, and then we moved to Germany, where we are now, currently living in Germany since 2014. And it has been another whole story. You know how it is, it changes. And, I believe every every destination, every country, and also every age, every stage of the ages of my kids have represented a different challenge for me as an expat mom. So it has different things to think about, and I believe that the moms are listening right now, they can relate to this. It's just when you have younger children, but also when you have the teenagers or that age 9, 10, 11, when they are not little but they are not teenagers yet. So those are also, challenging times.
Yeah. You have three teenagers.
Yes, I have 3 teenagers. Eduardo is tomorrow 17.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Miguel is 15 and Veronica, she is 14. So 3 teenagers in the house. They speak Spanish, English, and German. Yeah, it is amazing. When I see them, I admire them so much. Sometimes I feel that I don't tell them enough. And now we are facing our next relocation. My husband got a new position in New York City. So we are moving back to the States. But I see this as a new adventure as well, because, Texas, where we used to live, and New York are very different. So this relocation brings another set of challenges.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. But yeah. And ever since then, Camila, and I think I shared this with you, is where I started thinking, I thought about my own challenges with my kids. And that's when I start trying, wanting to help other women that were going through the same challenges that I was doing, especially Latina women, because it was, it's difficult. We Latinas are not used to the fact of, or we weren't used to the fact of moving abroad. We will go learn English or French and then go back, for example, in Venezuela and Colombia. And then all of a sudden we are having all these opportunities to move abroad, and sometimes because of a good job, or maybe because something that not so nice, the political crisis in our countries, and then we need to leave. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that I thought and I saw a need for this support. And that's how the whole concept of Little Nomadas started, because I said there are so many moms out there with their own little nomads.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I'm not the only one. Yes, it's sometimes you feel, like I say, alone, and you say, who else is going through this? There are many more out there.
Yeah, definitely. So just to give you guys a little background information. So Flor already mentioned that she has 3 teenagers, and my kids are much smaller. They're 6, 5, and a baby. So this is also great because I can learn so much from you about, how it's gonna continue from here onwards. Because obviously, like you alluded to before, the challenges are very different. Yes. From when they're really small to when they're teenagers and they have their own opinions and their own preferences and so.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you speak Spanish, English, and German.
Yes.
Host country, German in your home. And let's say mother languages are English and Spanish.
And Spanish, yeah.
Do your children have a weaker and a stronger language?
Yes, I do. Their stronger language is English, and they prefer it. And they tell me, and they speak between them English, and they speak English with Papa. So I think English is always there. They watch movies in English, series in English, they read books in English. So English is their favorite language. That's what they say. Okay. Then before coming to Germany, Spanish was the weaker language, but it was still there. Through movies as well. We used to go to Venezuela every year, once, twice a year. So the exposure and the need to use the language was bigger, because grandpa and grandma they don't speak English, and they needed to speak Spanish with them. So it was there. But since we moved to Germany and our kids went to a German school, they didn't go to an international school. They went right away to the German school system. And they were, I know this is not a nice word, but they were forced to learn the language because there weren't any other option. Yeah. Now they use it. And I can see that after English, German is quite strong, because it's the way they're having, it's the school language. It's the language of their friends, their peers. And that when you're a teenager, you don't look up to your parents. No, you look up to your peers. They are your reference point. And I see that there is a lot of the German language influence there. So I must say Spanish is the weakest of the 3. They do speak it a lot with me. They don't have any other option. And also I see them now showing some interest in reading in Spanish. Okay. But is I have to push it. I have to bring it. I have to motivate them to do it. And it cannot be just because I said so. It's Camila, it's a work of art. You need to find ways to motivate them to do it. Yeah.
Yes. I remember my mom, she was a diplomat's child, and she always said that in the end, even though she grew up in a bilingual household with German and Spanish, but in the end, she said the school language would always be the most dominant. After a few years, maybe after 2 years, she and her siblings would speak in the language of the school. So if that was English, English. If that was,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think, yes, definitely the school language is very dominant. And also, I think it's just so important to mention here that it's totally normal for your bilingual children to have a weaker and a stronger language. I remember seeing this quote, and I'm not sure, maybe you even posted that bilingualism doesn't mean double.
Yeah, the fluency or yeah. And actually, I think I posted when I published a set of Instagram posts about myths of bilingualism, because that's one of it. And it's so nice that you mentioned this, Camila, because I wanted to add, sometimes we are so influenced and impacted by labels. A strong language, weak language. And then I say, yes, we need to mention this because you need to measure a little bit how the language skills are. But if you ask me about feelings, it's stronger Spanish than English for my kids, because they have learned to express their love and their sadness and their anger in Spanish, because they express it to me. So that is something so special that I see. There is no other way for them to say I love you. They say te amo. So it is, and I see it. And when they are very upset, words come out in Spanish. So I see this emotional part has been ingrained in Spanish. And then the school language, because that's the language that they use for everything. It's not just school, it's for hanging out.
Yeah. So you're saying that not only is there a strong and a weaker language, which we just want all of you to know is completely normal.
Completely normal.
But also, even the weaker language can have a really strong aspect if your child, for instance, feels in this language, or maybe he reads in this language, or he watches whatever it is, right? Or he plays sports in this language.
Yes.
So this is something important, I think, to know.
Yeah.
Also, because talking about the weaker language, it's also normal that your bilingual children might have an accent in one of the languages they speak. They still don't have to translate everything possibly from another language. That's where this bilingualism comes in, but they might have an accent. So that's something that I talked with you about my children, that since they're young, German is still their first language. Even though we lived in different countries, but yeah, they speak Spanish, very well, but with a little bit of an accent. So I always talk to you about that.
And it's fascinating because they do it, and it's completely normal. So we can start by saying, first, it is normal that there is a language that they feel more comfortable speaking. And there will be different aspects of their lives that they will develop in a certain language. For example, my daughter, she started playing tennis here in Germany. So all the terminology, all the vocabulary for tennis, she knows it in German. And she tells me, what am I going to do when I move back to the States? Because I'm going to play tennis there. I'm not going to understand anything. I'm like, yes, you're going to learn the terms. So it depends, no? And it's like us, we grown-ups happens to, when you are used to work in English, all those technical vocabulary, technical words and technical vocabulary, it in English. And when you ask me about words like that in Spanish, I'm like, oh, wait a second. I haven't worked in this area in Spanish. I need to think a little bit. And the second could be the accent. It is completely normal that they have an accent. It is actually very important to highlight that as moms, as mothers, we usually get the pressure from family members from the home country to raise our kids, and that they speak the language the way we speak it in our countries. And I said, this is such a heavy load to my shoulders, because I cannot pretend that my kids are going to speak like Venezuelans with a Venezuelan accent when they have never lived there. So it is completely normal for you, for your kids, for the kids of many moms that are watching us or listening to us right now, to know that it is okay to have an accent. It is okay that the kids have accents my kids have accents in the three languages. They are fluent, but they have their accent because, they are constantly swimming. I like to think as the sea, going with the flow. They are constantly swimming between languages. So the accent part is totally, absolutely normal. This is not pronunciation. Pronunciation is another topic, but the accent when you speak is absolutely normal. And also I find it very unique.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. And it tells a story.
Yeah.
So, what would you suggest, to mothers to really help them develop this weaker language a little more?
Yeah, Camila, I think that we need to start by doing, I always focus on three things. First one is lower your expectations.
Mm-hmm.
What do I mean by this? We are so full of ideas, and I go online and I see your children speaking perfect German and speaking perfect Mandarin, and then the other thing, and then I start comparing. Oh, but my kids don't do that, and then I have these expectations. We need, as parents, to know that our kids will develop their language skills on their own way, at their own pace, their own time, like any other skills that they develop, and that we need to keep our expectations within those parameters. This is my child, I know her, I know him, and he's going to develop his skills on his or her own time. So that lowers the pressure, because it's not the expectation that they have to have perfect kids that speak perfect 3-4 languages. It's just they will go growing and developing those skills. The second step is to create motivation. Motivate them. I think motivation and need are the two key components for language learning, and not just for kids, also for us, we grown-ups.
Yeah.
So when I talk about motivation, it has to be fun. You're not going to be motivated to do something that you dislike, that you hate, that your mother sits by your side and forces you to write down sentences in French, Spanish, or Mandarin, if that's the language of the minority language in your house, or the language that you wish them to speak more. I think it has to be something fun, something that is ingrained in the routine of the family. Or maybe if you have the possibility, the capacity to hire someone to work with them, that this person, this educator, this teacher, or this nanny that maybe is a native speaker makes things fun. So there has to be the motivation. The motivation for a child is fun. We have to focus on their interests. It's a child that likes football. Let's try to motivate them with some soccer in Spanish. For example, my daughter loves art. So she's taking some art lessons in Spanish. So that motivates her, because what we're doing, Camille, is that we're using the target language to do something fun. So the goal is not to learn grammar about art in Spanish, is that she's going to make art, create art while using Spanish.
I love this.
And then the third one, and this one is very important, and I think that right now with the COVID situation, it is a little bit tricky, is create the need. And traveling is one of the things that you can do to create a need when you go back to your home country and your kids need to speak the language, because opa, oma, or grandma or grandpa, they don't speak the language, the school language, or the language of the country where we're living at the moment. That's a need. When we are able to enroll them in, I don't know, summer camp, and maybe they have the opportunity to engage in communication with other kids. So that is the need. I need to express myself. With this, we need to be very careful. There used to be, and I remember that was at the beginning of my motherhood years. That was in the 2004, 2005. There was a strong dilemma, and actually still a strong point, where they said that you need to force your kids to speak in the language you want. And if they don't speak to you, for example, my kids, they don't speak to me in Spanish, I pretend that I don't understand them. So every family adjusts, the ways of learning a language that goes best for the families, for their ways. But I wouldn't recommend shutting down or not talking to your child in the language, doesn't matter what language he speaks, because first in a language, you are trying to create connection. So creating the need for a language has to come from empathetic things, when an empathetic approach. I create the need by video calling grandma every Sunday. And maybe grandma, when they're small children, I think you and I talk about this. When they are little, maybe they cannot connect like this, like you and I, on a conversation in Spanish or French or English with grandma and grandpa, but maybe grandma or grandpa can read a story in the language. And the kids are playing in the playroom and they're just listening to grandpa and grandma reading the story. And I
also loved what you said about, I think, your dad, who calls in sometimes and
he's there.
He doesn't force them to have a conversation, because like the small children, they can't really focus on a video call. They get bored very easily. And it's obviously it's always a big disappointment for the grandparents then, because they want to have a little bit of conversation, but they're just not able to do it. It's too abstract. And then the teenagers, they might have other things in their head.
Other things, and they're always busy. Exactly. And they're always busy. So grandpa always says,
he actually says, just put me on there, and I want to watch them. I just want to see how they move, how they talk to each other. So I think, you talked about lowering expectations and the pressure that we can feel from our families back home. This would also be a beautiful conversation to have with them, maybe to say, listen, you need to also lower your expectations, and you can still be a part, even though, on camera, but you can still be a part of our lives, and just watch them without forcing them to speak if they don't want to.
Yes, and you can always tell your parents, grandma, grandpa, that this is also so fascinating for my father, and my father-in-law is doing it too. It's so fascinating to just be there. And he tells me, oh, look how concentrated Veronica is doing her homework, because right now they're doing the online school and doing a lot of homework. And she just puts the phone there, and grandpa is there. And they say, oh, Veronica is very concentrated. And in the middle of things, he will ask, oh, Veronica, do you like mathematics? Or do you like physics? Or do you like politics? And she will answer. She will answer in Spanish, because grandpa is speaking in Spanish. She's not completely engaged, but she's like, yes, I like politics. And she continues, but he's there. So I think this brings a precious, it's not just a language, I'm connecting with my grandfather. He accepts me the way I am, without the whole, but tell me something in Spanish.
Yes.
I don't know, maybe that they are not in the mood. Maybe that what you're asking me for, I don't know, and then I feel judged. So I think that this whole thing is the expectations, the motivation, and the need. If I know that grandpa is not expecting me to tell him a whole poem in Spanish, and then I have the motivation because of that, grandpa is so fond that he's just there, and I continue doing my own business. And then 3, I have the need to talk to him sometimes when he addresses me and asks something. This is the perfect combination to develop the weak language. Maybe it's not at a fast pace. It's something weekly that you can do, but I believe it's a very organic way to do it. Exactly.
I love that. And what role would you say does a certain cultural identification play in the acquisition and in the mastery of a language? So what I mean by that is, do you feel like they need to feel a little bit, for instance, Venezuelan, to really have this interest and to really want to master it? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, and I think every parent is going to see that as their kids grow older, and you're going to see them too, Camila. Something that I have come to realize is that my kids are my children are constantly trying to define their identities, because they have lived in different cultures and different countries. And this is not a struggle, but this journey has 2 sides. First, they are asking, and I see them, they want to be accepted the way they are. So they want to be recognized as unique. I bring something unique. Accept my diversity. Accept that I'm different. Accept that my Spanish is not that good, but that I have a strong accent in Spanish. Accept that I prefer to speak English, and accept that I play sports in German. So it's like that part, that identity. It's like I'm developing my uniqueness, and I want that my family and peers accept that. On the other hand, they want to belong.
Yeah.
And this is where the part where the language plays a huge role, because when you want to belong, you look and you want to get there, you want to be part of. And for that, for example, here at school, there has to be speaking German because that's the way they're going to connect with the others. So I see that there is a huge pressure, and maybe the other languages get behind and get, put aside. And because they are developing their identity right now by hanging out with their German friends, they will use the German language more. So this is part of identity and that part of belonging. But then they also feel Latino because they feel the strong influence from me, from our food, from our music, from everything, because I keep the Venezuelan culture alive here at home. So I see that when they want to be taken, like, I'm a Latino too. You see my 70-year-old, because now it's exotic, all everyone is, oh, you are exotic. So now he feels really, he's using it well, he's leveraged that. And now he wants to speak Spanish more. He wants to dance Latin music. He's reading Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So when I see that, this is now the Spanish moment. And I'm like, okay, I bought you 3 books of Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Here they are. And she's like, Mama, it's going to take me like 6 months to read the first one. I don't care. You already have the other ones. so it's that, so language is completely related to identity. We need to be very forgiving and understanding to know that they want to be accepted by their uniqueness. That means that I can speak 3 languages, but also they want to belong. So when we hear those comments, if my son just want to speak English or my son just want to speak German, the school language, it's not something against your own culture. It is that they want to belong.
Yeah.
And they already know that they belong in the family. So they need to belong there in the school. So that's what they do it. And Camila, with you, I also spoke one time about this. A child that is bilingual does not mean that it's bicultural. So that's the other thing that we need to, and the vice versa. If my child doesn't speak fluently 2 or 3 languages, the languages of our culture, does not mean that he doesn't share our cultural values. It means that he needs more time, or she needs more time to develop. And I think, Camila, that's something that is very important, to know that that they are not losing their culture if their language skills are not being developing at the same rate or at the same pace that we want. They're still, I don't know, Brazilian, Colombian, Egyptian. If that's the culture of your family, they still have it. You can still promote it, but don't feel discouraged because their language skills are not up here, there yet. That's very important.
Yeah. And I think, again, this goes back to having realistic expectations. So like you said, if a child has never, or not for a very long time, or not for the most important years of their development, maybe, if they haven't lived in a certain country, obviously their cultural identification will possibly be lower, right? And it's also a good sign, actually, because it means that they are adapting and opening up to this new culture that they're in right now.
Yeah.
And I think something that I'm just thinking about what I do. I mean, my language is actually not yet the minority language. It might be at one point, because like you also mentioned, this can change over time.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right now it is the stronger language, but something that I've noticed is really helpful is, first of all, exposing them to children of the same age, because that's a strong motivation and a strong need to speak like the locals, right?
Yes.
So I think
to belong.
And to belong, and you want to use the vocabulary they use and the way they express themselves, which is sometimes how you can distinguish if someone is actually like a native, born and raised there, or if someone has a great level of the language but is, has lived somewhere else. So that's sometimes how you can notice that.
Yes.
And then also, like you said, I mean, all the literature, really, I'm a big reader, so I read a lot to my kids.
I am too.
It's and that's not only language, that's also culture.
Yeah.
So the books that I read with them, that I even read in my childhood, possibly, there's an element of culture that goes into that. I think that's a beautiful way to combine the two and to inspire your children.
Yes, absolutely. The traditions that we celebrate at home.
Yeah.
And we celebrate so many festivities that are originally from from the United States or from Venezuela, though also that's cultural. That promotes the language and that promotes identity, helps them build their identity. And I think that goes well beyond just the language. It's about a wholesome development. They feel identified, they feel that they belong, they feel that they're part of that. Yeah. But not just one, they have a colorful.
Exactly. And not just the ones from the parents, which could be 2 languages and cultures, or it could even be more than that. I mean, there are some kids that grow up with 4 languages and with 4 cultures, or, but let's just for a minute back up and go back to maybe starting out. So let's say you're a new mother, you're an expectant mother. What would you say are the do's and don'ts in transmitting 2 or more languages?
I will say the first one is find support. This is quite a challenging journey, and transiting or walking this path alone makes everything harder and more difficult. Right now, we have the possibility to connect with many people, with many like-minded moms around the world virtually. So I think this is a very important aspect, is that you create your toolbox, as an expectant mother or as a mother of a toddler or a baby. Create your toolbox emotionally and also material. So my first thing, because it was so lonely for me at the beginning, and I think that made everything more difficult, is that I see that when you have a support system, things flow better. And with the languages, that means that maybe you find a way to have a schedule to talk with your family and friends back home. So you have a plan and you have already spoken to them and say, hey, we're going to start with lullabies, we're going to start with singing songs, or you're going to read to the baby. It can be also a recording, this will be with the material things. Mama, Papa, please grab a recording of your voices for the baby. I don't know, traditional music, everything that connects them with that. But for that, you need a support system. You need a grandma that sends the books and the CDs. Or you need the grandpa that is going to record the video and he's going to sing to the baby. So I will suggest.
Maybe a play group, right?
A play group. I wanted to say that. Yes, these mommy and me lessons. Or these mommy and me groups. Or maybe an online group like the one that you and I have. Or there's out there so many that you can share your story, that you can share your frustration and also get some feedback, because 2 heads think better than one. And when you talk to me and tell me your story, I can share what I'm going through, and then we find solutions together. So my first 2 will be create your toolbox. And your toolbox has to have support, emotional, from someone. You're going to create your group of moms and family members that will help you to raise bilingual kids. And also your toolbox, material toolbox. For example, like Camila, you can have all the fairy tale books in your language. You're not just bringing your language, you're bringing your culture. You can have, I don't know, some toys that you just dedicated to using when you speak Spanish. I remember that I have a set of little animals and they were like finger puppets. And there were a little cow, a little, it was farm animals. And now when I put them on, I would always speak in Spanish.
Yes.
So my daughter knew right away, when I pull out the little horse, she will say, hola, because she knows that the horse just speaks Spanish.
I love this idea.
It was so lovely to see her.
Yes, I imagine. So cute. I had stuffed animals, and one was a rabbit, and his name was Patas Largas. So
I love it.
I knew growing up, my mom, she tried to raise me with Spanish, but then I would always, from the time I went to kindergarten, I would always reply in German. And then I guess she didn't have the support system because my grandparents lived in Argentina at the time. And she actually gave up. Like, she wasn't living near her siblings at the time. It was a bit difficult. And unfortunately, she gave up. I mean, she did give me a solid base that I could then develop. And when my grandparents returned, but yeah. So again, I guess that highlights the importance of the support system.
Yes, because then you think, it is easier. And I don't like to say quit, but it's easier to give up and because at the moment you didn't have the tools, and that's why sometimes also I call for empathy. We need to have this big umbrella of empathy when we see other moms struggling with the language and the bilingual process, because you have to understand not all of us have the same tools, not all of us have the same support system, and maybe you are struggling, your struggle is more difficult than mine. So that is why I believe this is what we do now. Camila, I wish I would have this before.
Oh, yeah.
These podcasts, these safe places where we can express and share the story. This is the first do. Surround yourself by your own support system. Second, prepare your material toolbox. Stuffed animals, finger puppets, those recordings from grandpa that you can play. The story times. I love story times. I used to visit these story time groups in Texas, I remember. Every mom with their little baby or toddler, and then there will be this story time about a story in Spanish or English. You choose. It's trying to find a way to connect. I think that the first years, more than the baby or the toddler listening to the language, is you getting used to your own bilingual journey. And I think that that's the main theme. This comes back to the self-care that you and I have talked too much, and this will be another point.
Oh, yeah.
It is that, is that you feel confident and you feel comfortable during this journey, that you don't question yourself so much. Don'ts, expectations, trying to listen and do what everyone says. For me, that's the main one. No, Tia, the auntie says this, grandma suggests this, then the pediatrician has told me something different. And it is important that you find your own voice, so you follow your inner compass to do what you think is right for you and your baby. Also, know where the information is coming from. I knew that my mom was well-intentioned. She wanted to say and do things that were coming from love, but she didn't have an expat upbringing. She didn't have a multicultural upbringing, and she didn't speak more than one language. So how could she give me advice about how to raise my kid bilingual? So, and that point is where I said, you need to appreciate. Yes, I appreciate your advice. As a young mother, I take it, but or a new mother, but then I know where it's coming from. And here I want to highlight, Camila, that it's very important to not to, and this could be a do as well, I will say, I'm focusing on the flip positive side of the things, is to find a doctor, a pediatrician, and surround yourself by teachers, or try to do it, that are familiar with the bilingual journey. Because it's very easy to have a teacher that gives you an advice, but she doesn't have any experience in bilingual kids. Yeah. So you will get the wrong comment at the wrong, at the wrong moment. So it is, create your own voice. Don't listen to everyone. Don't have so high expectations from you. Don't be so perfectionist as well. So if you see what I'm doing right now is highlighting a lot the emotional path of the mother. Yes. Because I think that at the end, if we don't feel good about it, we are going to give up. Confident, we're going to do it. Yeah.
Yes, I love this. Okay.
Yeah.
That's such valuable advice. And just as a last question or topic that I just want to throw in there. So something, talking about do's and don'ts, something that's really worked for us as a family is that I exclusively spoke in German and my husband exclusively in Spanish. And so the children, even before understanding, okay, this is German and this is Spanish, they knew mommy speaks like this and daddy speaks like that. And I think it just, it just creates a kind of dynamic that's worked really well for us.
Yes.
But again, every family needs to have their own path. So I'm just sharing what's worked for me and my family. But of course, there are situations where, for instance, let's say mommy and child are with the grandmother who speaks another language and she only speaks that language.
Yeah.
So I think this is something that we encounter a lot. So what do? You're used to speaking, let me just go with my example. You're used to speaking German with your child.
Yes.
But your mother-in-law only speaks Spanish. How can you, create an atmosphere where she doesn't feel left out, but also your child is not confused or kind of lost? Like, for instance, my children, they don't want me to speak in a different language. I could perfectly speak Spanish with them.
Yes.
They don't want they don't want me to do that. They want me to, I guess it's something that gets them confused.
Exactly. For them, for them, this is the language a mommy speaks. I think, Emilia, then in this case, and it happened to me too, when they were little, and it happens now, but different ages, different approaches. So I would suggest first with little kids, continue speaking to your child the language that he connects with you, but try to explain the situation to the other people, and he's or she's going to be listening. And as they grow, teach them to be flexible. At this moment, at this table with these friends, we need to speak English because they don't speak Spanish or they don't speak German.
I love
that way you can say it. Yeah, flexibility is also important.
I think that's a life lesson. Like the more flexible you can be in life, the easier your life will be.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I love this so much, Flor. I think we talked for an hour almost.
Yeah, so
and
long.
I feel like there's still so many questions that I can already imagine people having. But thank God, this interview was just the start. And if you guys are left with question, or sometimes it's very personal questions about your specific situation at home, then you can always reach out to Flor. And she'll definitely be happy to give you advice. If Spanish is, for instance, the weaker language in your home, or you would just simply like your children to pick it up, then I can very much recommend this language trainer right here.
Yes. It's something that I do for passion. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
And please, moms listening, also make sure to join our Expat Mom Support Club. That's the name, and I'm going to link that in the session note of our Facebook group. Yes, let's just keep inspiring each other and motivating each other and cheering each other on this journey, because it is so great, this gift of bi or multilingualism that we're given to our children. I mean, that is so valuable. And so it requires a lot of effort. It can be a lonely journey, like Flor said, but it is so amazing. So round of applause for everyone.
Camila, I want to thank you, not just for having me here, but for creating this space for other moms to listen to stories. I think storytelling is a powerful tool. And we need to listen to more people living and going through the same things or similar things as we do. That makes you feel, I don't know, that you belong.
Yeah, it does.
Exactly. So yes, I'm here for you guys. And Camila,
where people can connect with you and follow you and find out more about you and your services.
Yes, absolutely. In social media outlets, in Facebook, Instagram, I'm under the name of Little Nómadas. So little in English and Nómadas in Spanish. And I also have a LinkedIn profile. There you can find me under the name Flor García. And yes, I'm here for you. I offer the Spanish consultancy for children and also for the moms and dads that want to learn as well along the way. So I'm certified to teach illegal Spanish and executive Spanish. And I also do this guidance of this, consulting for families that want to find a plan to create identity and also how to handle different languages at home. So yes, absolutely. And yes, an inbox on Facebook or maybe Instagram, and I will get back to you as soon.
Yeah, I'm going to share all of the links in the session notes. And I feel like this is one of so many more conversations that we're going to have. And so with that, Flor, I thank you so much for coming on here and sharing all of your knowledge and your expertise with us. Thank you all for listening. And
thank you.
I'll be back with you next week.
Absolutely. Thank you, Camila. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to share this episode with your expat besties and show me some love in the reviews. Want more juicy content designed for expat wives? Then head over to my website, www.camilaquintana.com, or follow me on Instagram and Facebook at coach.camilaquintana.